I have been watching humans for a long time, and one thing I have noticed, they carry a lot of things that were never theirs to carry.
What do you mean?
Rules, expectations, sentences that sound wise but quietly do a lot of damage. Things like, you have to earn rest, or showing emotion makes you weak, or if you work hard enough, success is guaranteed.
Those sound like advice.
That is exactly the problem. They sound like advice, but sometimes they are just pressure, dressed up very nicely.
Welcome back to the Primate podcast, your slow English podcast for real-life conversations. I'm Zara.
I'm Bob, and today we are talking about something that I think a lot of people feel, but don't always have the language for.
The big lies society told us.
Not dramatic lies, not obvious lies, the quiet ones. The sentences people say so often, so casually, that they start to sound true.
This is a B1 to B2 episode, but honestly, this topic speaks to everyone. Don't worry if you don't catch every single word. Just stay with the feeling. The English will come to you naturally.
Before we start, comment below. What is one thing people told you that sounded like wisdom, but you now think was actually pressure? Write it. We want to know.
Okay, Bob, you have watched tourists for years. Hundreds of people, different ages, different places, different lives. What do you see in them?
Honestly, I see a lot of people who look busy but not alive. People who are doing everything they were told to do and still feel like something is missing. And I always wonder, what were they told? What sentences are they carrying?
Let's start with the one that I think reaches the most people.
Which one?
The lie that your value depends on how much you produce.
Ooh, yes.
Because so many people don't just work. They measure themselves through work. A productive day, they feel okay. A slow day, they feel guilty. A rest day, they feel like they're doing something wrong.
Like being busy became the proof that you matter.
Exactly. And it starts early. Don't be lazy, use your time properly, always stay busy. And after years of hearing that, rest stops feeling normal. Rest starts feeling like something you have to earn.
Which is a very strange idea when you think about it. Rest is not a reward. Rest is a need, like water, like air.
But people don't feel it that way. I had a period like that once. I was working too much, sleeping badly, answering messages at midnight and calling it dedication. And my body started sending signals. Headaches, irritability, that strange flatness where even nice things don't land properly.
Like the lights are on, but the warmth has gone somewhere.
Yes, exactly that.
And the worst part of this lie is what it does to how people see themselves. Because when your value is tied to output, a slow day doesn't just feel unproductive. It feels like a personal failure.
You sit on the sofa for an hour and instead of resting, you're sitting there calculating how unworthy you are.
Your body is resting. Your guilt is still walking around the room.
That is painfully true. And once people live that way long enough, they start believing the next lie almost automatically.
The lie that hard work always leads to success.
And this one is painful because part of it sounds true.
Hard work matters. Let's be honest about that. It does. But it is not the whole story.
No, timing matters. Opportunity matters. Who you know matters. Luck matters. Being seen at the right moment by the right person, that matters too.
And that is hard to accept. Because people want life to feel fair, like a vending machine. I put in effort, I get the result.
Hello? I inserted suffering. Where is my reward?
But real life doesn't work like that. Two people can try equally hard and end up in very different places. And when someone was told hard work always wins, and then it doesn't, they don't think the system failed them. They think they failed.
Maybe I'm just not enough. Maybe I'm missing something everyone else has.
Which is such a lonely way to carry disappointment.
And I see this in tourists sometimes. The ones who arrive here looking exhausted, not tired from travel, tired in a deeper way, tired from trying to reach something that keeps moving. They reach one thing, and for one moment it feels good. And then, quietly, the finish line moves again.
Your happiness sends a message. Sorry, not here yet. Please try the next milestone.
And that takes us straight to the next lie. The lie that the next big thing will make you happy.
I'll be happy when I get that job, when I move, when I find the right person, when I become the better version of myself that I keep promising.
Happiness keeps getting pushed forward, like it lives in the future and keeps sending updates. Still not here, try the next thing.
And goals are not bad. Let's say that clearly. Goals matter. Working towards something matters.
But the problem starts when people hold back joy until they get the next thing. When they think, my life will really begin after this.
After this job, after this relationship, after this season is over, after I finally fix this one thing about myself.
And meanwhile, life is already happening, right now, in this moment that doesn't feel big enough to count.
I had a tourist once, a man, maybe 40 years old. He sat near my rock for almost an hour, very still, very quiet, not peaceful quiet, the other kind.
What happened?
Eventually, he said something I wasn't sure was for me or for himself. He said, I built everything I planned to build, and I still wake up asking, is this it?
That is heartbreaking.
He had reached every milestone and discovered that the peace he was waiting for was not inside any of them. Because peace does not live in future achievements. It lives in the present, or it doesn't live anywhere.
And maybe the saddest thing is, the golden years of your life are not waiting for you in the future. Sometimes they're happening now, and people are so busy postponing joy that they don't even notice.
Okay, this next one I find particularly interesting because it sounds kind, but it isn't always.
Which one?
The lie that showing emotion makes you weak.
Boys don't cry.
That sentence, 3 words, and what it teaches is not stay strong. What it teaches is hide what you feel, because what you feel is a problem.
And it arrives so early. Before people even have words for what they experience, they're already learning that having feelings is something to be ashamed of.
And it doesn't only stay with the boys. I heard a version that landed with a woman I know. When she cried too easily, someone close to her would say, "Don't cry so much. People will think you're weak."
And after some time, you stop thinking, I'm hurt. You start thinking, oh no, I'm showing too much.
Yes, and then it's not just sadness. It becomes anger, fear. Even asking for comfort starts to feel like an embarrassing request.
Like, emotions are rooms inside you. Sadness in one room, fear in another, anger in another. And instead of learning how to walk into those rooms, understand what's there, and come back out, people are taught to keep all the doors shut and pretend the house is empty.
But the rooms are still there.
And after a while, the whole place starts to feel heavy.
I see this in tourists, the ones who arrive here and for some reason start to cry. Not because anything happened, just because they're outside, the air is different. The noise of their normal life is far away, and something they had been carrying for a very long time finally gets put down for a moment.
Emotions are not weakness. They're information. They are the way your inner world communicates with you. When you shut them down, you don't become stronger. You become less able to understand yourself and less able to understand other people.
And once people are taught to hide feelings, the next lie follows naturally.
The lie that you should always be okay.
How are you? Fine, thanks.
That exchange, that little performance, both people knowing it is not entirely true, both people accepting it as the only available answer.
Because somewhere we learned not being okay is inconvenient. It makes other people uncomfortable. It asks something from them.
So people smile, they nod, they say, "I'm fine." And inside, full traffic jam.
Full traffic jam, yes.
And social media made this worse because now you can see everyone else's highlight reel, their good moments, their beautiful mornings, their polished achievements. And nobody is posting the Tuesday afternoon when everything felt too heavy for no clear reason.
So everyone looks fine. And because everyone looks fine, you feel strange for not being fine. You think something must be wrong with you specifically.
When actually almost everyone has a version of that same Tuesday afternoon. They're just keeping it private.
And the worst consequence of this lie is that people start needing approval before they can feel okay about themselves. They need the likes, the compliments, the external confirmation that they are doing well enough. Because the internal voice has been so suppressed for so long, it can no longer be trusted.
And here is what I think is true. Not being okay is not a character flaw. It is information. It means something needs attention, something needs rest, something needs to be said out loud. The goal is not to always be okay. The goal is to be honest about where you actually are and move from there.
And that brings us to the last one. And I think this one is the most quietly damaging of all.
Which one?
The lie that life starts later.
Work hard now, enjoy later. Sacrifice now, live later. Just survive this phase. The real life begins after.
And sometimes, in difficult seasons, that thought helps people get through. I understand why it exists.
But when later becomes the whole plan, life turns into a waiting room. You keep preparing for the real thing, and the real thing never quite begins.
You delay rest. You delay joy. You delay the relationships you want. You delay being the version of yourself you were planning to be.
Once I retire, then I'll breathe. Then I'll travel. Then I'll finally have time for the things that matter.
But that is such a painful gamble, because the strongest years, the most alive years, are not always waiting in the future. Sometimes they were the years you were too busy preparing to live.
And then one day you look back, and there was no disaster. Nothing dramatic happened. Life was just postponed, again and again, until the postponing became the life.
I think about tourists who come here at the end of things. Retirement, a difficult diagnosis, some turning point that made them suddenly aware of time. And many of them have the same look. Not regret exactly, something quieter. Like they kept packing their bags for a beautiful trip and never actually left the house.
That is the heartbreak of it.
So maybe the most important question is not what am I working toward, but what am I allowing myself right now, not instead of the future, alongside it.
Some happiness has to be allowed now. Some rest now. Some honesty now. Some real moments now. Because life cannot only exist in the future, it has to be let in now, or it passes without you ever really feeling it. Okay, before word tour, let's bring this together.
These lies didn't arrive as lies.
No, they arrived as advice, as life lessons, as things people said because they thought they were helping.
And sometimes they really did mean well. That's what makes it complicated. The message may have come from love, but the effect, for a lot of people, was something else.
It taught them to hide pain, feel guilty for resting, keep going when they should have stopped, measure their worth by their output, push joy into the future, and pretend to be fine when they weren't.
And once you can name that, once you can see the lie clearly, it starts to lose some of its power. Not all of it, but some.
Because naming things is the beginning, not the end, but the beginning.
And the question is not, how do I undo everything I was taught? The question is, which of these things do I want to carry forward? And which ones, finally, do I put down?
That is the choice, and you can make it quietly, without drama, one small moment at a time.
Okay. Word tour.
Let's go. 13 words from today. Words for the things that are hard to name. Everyone, repeat out loud.
Ready? Let's go. 1. Conditioning. Conditioning. The way people are trained over time to think or behave in a certain way, not through one dramatic moment, but through slow repetition. A lot of his guilt around resting came from years of social conditioning. Once you see your own conditioning, the automatic reaction starts to feel less automatic. Repeat. Conditioning. Conditioning. 2. Internalize. Internalize. To take something in so deeply that it becomes part of how you think, without questioning it. She internalized the message that emotions were weakness before she had words for it. Once a belief is internalized, it stops feeling like a belief and starts feeling like the truth. Repeat. Internalize. Internalize. 3. Suppress. Suppress. To push something down, especially a feeling, instead of allowing it to be felt or expressed. He had suppressed so much for so long that even joy felt unfamiliar. Suppression can look like calm from the outside, while everything is building underneath. Repeat. Suppress. Suppress. 4. Worthiness. Worthiness. The sense of deserving, of believing you have value simply because you exist, not because of what you produce. Real worthiness does not depend on how productive your day was. She spent years chasing achievements before she understood that worthiness was already hers. Repeat. Worthiness. Worthiness. 5. Validation. Val-I-day-shun. Approval or confirmation from outside yourself that makes you feel accepted or okay. He kept looking for validation from other people instead of learning to trust himself. Validation from others can feel good, but it cannot replace the kind that comes from inside. Repeat. Validation. Validation. 6. Postpone. Postpone. To put something off to a later time, especially joy, rest, or things that matter. She postponed so many things that the future arrived before the joy ever did. The danger of postponing happiness is that later sometimes never comes. Repeat. Postpone. Postpone. 7. Resentment. Re-sent-ment. A quiet anger that builds over time when your needs, feelings, or hopes are ignored for too long. Years of saying yes when she meant no slowly turned into resentment. Resentment often grows quietly, not from one big event, but from 1,000 small surrenders. Repeat. Resentment. Resentment. 8. Unlearn. Unlearn. To actively work against a habit, belief, or pattern you have already learned. To slowly replace it with something truer. Some of the most important work adults do is unlearning what they were taught as children. Unlearning is slower than learning because the old pattern is already part of you. Repeat.
Unlearn. Unlearn.
9. Vulnerable. Vulnerable. Open enough to show real feelings, even when that feels uncomfortable or risky. Real vulnerability begins when you stop performing fine. Being vulnerable is not weakness, it is the courage to be honest about what you actually feel. Repeat. Vulnerable. Vulnerable. 10. Hollow. Hollow. Empty inside, when something looks complete or successful on the outside but feels meaningless within. He reached the goal and the celebration lasted 1 week. After that, something felt hollow. That hollow feeling is often a signal, not that something is wrong with you, but that the thing you were chasing was not really yours. Repeat. Hollow. Hollow. 11. Burnout. Burnout is a state of deep exhaustion, physical, mental, and emotional, caused by too much effort over too long without enough recovery. Burnout does not arrive with a warning. It arrives when you finally stop and realize you have nothing left. The dangerous thing about burnout is that driven people are often the last to see it coming. Repeat. Burnout. Burnout.
12. Reframe. Reframe. To look at something from a different angle. To change the way you interpret a situation without changing the situation itself. She couldn't change what had happened, but she slowly began to reframe what it meant. Reframing is not denial. It is choosing a perspective that serves you better. Repeat. Reframe. Reframe.
13. Enough. E-N-O-U-G-H. A word that sounds simple but carries enormous weight. The belief that what you have done and who you are is sufficient. The sentence she needed most was not do more, it was you are enough. Enough is not settling. Enough is the honest recognition that some things do not need to be bigger to be real. Repeat. Enough. Enough.
All for things that are often felt but rarely named. Repeat them tonight. And then pick one lie from today, just one, and ask yourself, where did it come from? And is it actually true?
Episode 12. Done.
We talked about 5 lies. That your value is your output. That hard work guarantees success. That the next milestone will make you happy. That emotions are weakness. And that life starts later.
None of these lies are simple, and none of them disappear the moment you name them. But naming them, that is somewhere to begin.
Comment below. What is one sentence you were told that sounded like wisdom, but you now think was actually pressure? It can be something from childhood, from work, from culture, from someone who meant well.
One sentence writes it, we read everything, and we think these comments will mean something to other people reading them.
Subscribe to the Primate podcast. New episodes every 2 days. From the studio, I'm Zara.
I'm Bob. Don't be a parrot. Parrots repeat. Primates understand.